biz. The biz, the biz.
Hey everyone, I'm life transformation coach Darnell Rivera. Welcome to What's the Biz 559. Here at What's the Biz, we would truly like to inspire and empower our listeners. So today, we're really excited about a guest that we have. We have book author Saira Rocha. She wrote Losing Isaac, Memoirs of a Bereaved Mom. Now, although this is a really heavy subject, we just want to inspire you because, you know, life happens, right? We all live and we all die one day. And a lot of times people don't like to look at the world of grief. And I'm so glad that we're picking this topic for today just to inspire you and hopefully bring a little bit of healing to your world. Saira, welcome. We are so happy to have you here today. Tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, my name is Saira Rocha, as you said, and I have been married for 25 years to my wonderful husband, Matt.
Congratulations.
And thank you. And I have two beautiful children, Emily and Isaac. And I was born and raised in Dinuba, and then I moved to Kingsburg when I married my husband.
Oh, okay. Exciting. So I know your story, but for the listeners, can you tell us what motivated you to write about grief regarding your son?
So losing Isaac came through basically my journalings that I did after the loss of my son. Isaac was 19. He was our only son, and he walked out our door Sunday evening, August 23rd, and he was killed in a single car accident in the early morning of August 24th. So we often say that he walked out our door and he never walked through our doors again.
Wow.
And in facing the biggest loss of our lives, I found myself trying to find ways to process my grief and loss. And I began to journal my grief. And I was doing that every day. It became kind of like a part of my daily routine. And so that's really how the book began.
Wow. I can only imagine. Losing a loved one is crushing, but especially losing a child. I mean, that's got to be a pretty incredible, painful experience. So how has your writing helped you cope with just carrying that whole world of grief now?
I feel like my writing has helped in the sense of I'm not very good with my words and sharing how I feel with other people. Even though I'm pretty outgoing, I am very private when it comes to my feelings. So I feel like I was able to write them down on paper and do so in a way that is relatable to other people. I feel like it was a way for me to kind of purge the pain and sorrow that I was feeling at the time and get it all out on paper.
Yeah. I've had the privilege to read your book, and I don't know what it's like to lose a child, but it was so relatable in my experiences about grief. I found such value in the human side of what you share. A lot of times, you know, like I said, grief is a topic people don't like to look at because it's the ending of something, right? But however, I was inspired. Like, I would read certain things and I would be like, oh my gosh, that's how I felt.
Right.
You know, so it was very inspiring for me. Now you wrote in, like you said, in a because you like to journal.
Yes.
And so I think that's called prose. I think that's a certain style of the book that you wrote in, which was very beautiful because it came from a place of in the moment of an experience or in the moment of the day.
Right.
Did you intentionally want to do that for the reader, or how did you? Because I know you mentioned journaling. So where did that whole desire to write in that type of style come from?
So I've always loved to write. And even back in high school, I remember taking creative writing classes and that type of thing. And I would write, and my teachers would submit things for like competitions and things like that.
Oh, okay.
And so I would win like local things. And then for a very long time after I got married and whatnot, I kind of stopped writing. And then when I had my kids and stuff, I was just way too busy. So it wasn't until Isaac passed away that I turned back to writing. And it's just really something that flowed out of me. It wasn't like I purposely tried to write a book.
Right.
It was just how I was feeling in the moment. And anytime a thought came to mind, I would jot it down. And then it kind of just took on a life of its own.
Okay. So, and I mean, this is to the audience, journaling is a very powerful way to release emotion. I mean,
Yes.
People have been talking about it, on social media, in the public, even before social media, how, journaling just really helps to release. Did you find in the beginning of your journaling experience, trying to get on paper everything that you're feeling, did you find it, like you said, in the beginning, it was you were writing a little bit and then it just kind of took a life on its own. Was there ever a time in it where it got to be maybe too much emotionally and you just had to like set it down for a minute? Or how did you, and if so, how did you break through that barrier?
Right. I've always felt like writing is a very safe space for me. So I was pretty honest. In my writing, I'm very honest. I write things not really expecting that people are going to read it necessarily.
Surprise!
Yes. And I think when I'm feeling most emotional, that's when the writing just kind of feels like it just pours out of me the best.
Yeah.
So kind of at my lowest and heaviest, I feel like I'm able to get that down on paper. And then I feel like a weight is kind of lifted.
Oh, like a sort of
yes,
like a release.
like a release.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah.
So writing for me helps me to do that. And like I said, it's been a really great tool to process my grief. Because even with my husband and my daughter, we are all grieving the same loss, but we grieve differently.
Oh, yeah.
And so my husband keeps things more within.
Yeah.
And then he'll share things little by little. My daughter's also very private. And so she doesn't like to talk about her emotions. I have to kind of wait for her to bring things up. But for me, I feel like sometimes when I have no one to talk to, writing is a way for me to kind of just get everything out.
Yeah. So going back on and talk a little bit about your family. So when, let's say in that moment when you decided this is what I want to do, what type of support, I mean, because you said you're private, they're private. What was the initial reason why you felt like this book needed to be written and shared with the world? And also too, was there conflict? I don't want to use the word conflict because that's kind of a heavy word, but for people who are so private, was there some type of way that maybe the experience for them wasn't going to be well appreciated in that moment that you decided to write it?
Right. Well, first of all, when I started sharing some of my writing on social media, that's kind of how I started putting it little by little out there. And I had several people reach out to me telling me, you need to write a book. And I thought that was crazy. And then you and I connected and I read some more stuff to you. And I remember you saying, girl, you need to write a book. And I was like, I went home and I told my husband, my daughter, Darnell says I should write a book. I'm like, she's crazy, right? And they were like, no, you should write a book. So
wow, that's beautiful support though. They saw it too.
Yes,
that's
they did.
Amazing.
So they really encouraged me. They were like, yeah, I mean, do it. And then as I began to talk to family members and like with my mom and different people, everybody was like, you should do it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so weird that nobody else thought it was crazy except for me. And so really I started putting more and more of my journalings out on social media, and I kept getting responses from people.
Yeah.
And I think just having all that encouragement from everyone and from you, and it made me feel like it was possible to do it.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of prayed about it, and I feel like everything just kind of started falling into place and coming together.
Yeah, yeah. So how long did it take from the when you made the decision, yes, I'm going to write a book, to holding that first book in your hand? What was that timeline like?
So literally it was probably about 9 months total.
Wow.
Which is
That's
really
amazing.
crazy. When I've talked to other people who have written books, they tell me that it's usually at least a couple years in the making process. But like I said, I feel like once I kind of decided it was going to happen, things just kind of fell in place.
Right.
I actually submitted my writing to a couple of different publishing houses. And I got a response back from one of them that they wanted to publish it. But the only reason I didn't go that route was because they wanted to have rights to my book. And I kind of felt like after talking with my husband, because it was such a personal, private, personal story.
Right.
I didn't want someone else to have any rights to it. I wanted to have full control over what was being said and done with it. So I decided to go the route of Amazon and self-publishing on Amazon. And I researched it, watched several videos of what I needed to do, who I needed to hire, and kind of, took off from there.
Fell into place.
Yep.
Huh?
I found an editor. I found somebody that worked with me on the formatting, and it literally, I probably could have put it out sooner, and I kind of had to put the brakes on, oh my gosh, this is really happening. So
I remember when you launched it on Amazon, it was #1 best-selling on Amazon. So it went...
For a new book,
Yeah, I think that happened in the first or second week, right?
Yes.
So if you listeners out there are inspired to tell your story, this is definitely an inspiration right here, because Saira went in it with eyes unseen, you didn't know what the outcome was. Expectations. And, your world just kind of shifted in that. So we're definitely grateful for that. Many readers and people that'll pick up the book, or people that are listening to the podcast, have experienced grief.
Right.
What do you feel has been the greatest impact for people that you have touched with the book? Because I know you have a lot of stories about people all over the world who have reached out to you in what your book has done for them. Can you share with us a little bit about how your book has inspired the reader?
Right. So I've had quite a few people reach out. I've had people all the way from Africa. I saw that somebody from Australia bought it. We were super excited at home.
Yeah.
One of the ones that stands out is I've had several people from all over the country, but Spain, I had a lady who reached out to me and told me that she was very inspired by the way that I'm grieving, and asked me kind of how are you able to do this? And that's been one of the things that a lot of people have reached out to ask me, how are you able to keep going? And so the biggest thing that I always tell them is my faith. My faith first, first and foremost, is probably the biggest reason I've been able to do it. But even locally, I've had people reach out, other bereaved moms that have lost their sons, daughters, that have told me that they felt like when they read the book that I basically gave their grief a voice, and that they felt every single emotion that I went through in there, because I was pretty honest about it all. And I know at times it can be heavy if you pick it up to read it, but I wanted to be true to what grief is.
Yeah.
And grief isn't always, grief is very heavy at times, but there's also moments of, I have found, of joy as well, that come out of hearing other people that can relate to you in that way. Yeah.
It's inspiring too. I mean, you share with such an accurate transparency. It's almost like you allow the reader to really say to themselves, I'm not the only one who felt like that. So what I'm feeling is okay. Whether it's, the deep depth depression of sorrow, or whether it's the anger that sometimes comes with grief, you write from such a candid place. And I think like I said, the transparency, for me, it was the most beautiful thing, because it seemed like right after you wrote, I read the book completely, because I've reread it too, because there's a lot of journal entries that have become my favorite. And then my father passed, and I still found really deep understanding for my emotions when I would reread certain things from your book. So, I mean, I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
I'll just say
I
that.
appreciate that.
So let me ask you this. So what type of things are you doing outside in your life now in relation to your book? Like what type of, well, just tell us, like, I mean, are you holding, workshops? Are you doing readings? Or what kind of things are opening up for you? Or what kind of goals are you hoping to kind of take on with this book?
Currently so I've had a couple of people reach out telling me that they are reading the book as part of their book club.
Oh, nice.
And I've had a couple of people reach out and ask if I would be willing to, speak at their women's ministry, kind of like either not necessarily retreat, but just kind of like a meeting, get together on grief. So I have a couple of opportunities like that in the works, but really I'm kind of just open to whatever God has for me.
Yeah,
from
but
here
you
on
are
out.
open to public speaking and sharing your story and everything like that.
I am open to that. I kind of feel like the more I can tell my story and kind of, it's a way for me to share not only my grief, but also my love for Isaac.
Right.
And so the more opportunities I have to do that, I'm more than happy to speak. I would even be willing to do, readings for people if they're open and up to it. I am still journaling, and so I have another book in the works.
Oh, okay.
So
Good.
be on the lookout for that. Maybe next year sometime.
Looking forward to that for sure. So speaking of the love for your son, tell me how you and your family are honoring your son's memory. I think it's beautiful, but I really want the listeners to hear this because it's tremendous.
Thank you. So first of all, one of the ways I wanted to honor Isaac was in writing this book. I wanted for people to get to know him that didn't have a chance to meet him before he passed away. So that was a big thing. I feel kind of like this book is a way to not only further his legacy of loving big and wanting to help other people, because that was the main intention in the book, was to help other people through their grief and kind of give people permission to talk more openly about their grief.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of times people don't know don't know what to say. And there's this like awkwardness around it. And I know like when I've talked with my mom and whatnot, it was kind of a taboo subject in the past to talk about. So that was kind of the main reason I wanted to write the book. And a lot of that was for him. And then the other thing that I do is I decorate his resting place. Yeah. My son loved to fish. I have this video where he talks over and over. He was supposed to list like his favorite thing, something he does, and then what he'd like to do in business. And he kept talking about fishing throughout the whole video. So, so I decorate his resting place in a fishing theme. I put fake grasses. I have a sign that says, catch you later, gone fishing. And so that's kind of my thing that I do weekly. I change it up for holidays and whatnot.
Oh, nice.
Because I kind of feel like when I lost Isaac, I also feel like I lost the ability to be his mom here. And this is one of the ways that I honor him, but also a way that I can still do something for him.
And be mom.
Yep.
That's really, really beautiful.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about Isaac, because I know that there's things that you share with me, but Kingsburg is a small community, and for a 19-year-old to impact a community like he did, I think it's just amazing. So tell us a little bit about Isaac.
So, like I said, Isaac was 19, and Isaac had a big personality. And I say that he was very loud and unfiltered. If he was thinking it, he said it. But he also loved that way. He loved in a really big way. And when I say that, I mean like he was the type of person that either he loved you with everything or he didn't love you at all. There was no like in between. No. And I remember even as a little boy, like things that stood out to me were he would, we always did like prayers in the evening and who we wanted to pray for. And he would have the longest list of everybody he was praying for. But he prayed for things that I didn't even think about. Like when it was raining, he would ask if we could pray for the homeless because it was raining and they didn't have a home. And hearing him say things like that, even from when he was little, made me more aware of, what was going on around me as well.
Yeah.
And so I feel like over the years, he really showed us not just how much he loved us, but he also made us very aware of like things that were going on around us. Because I often say that like living in Kingsburg, we kind of sometimes feel like we're living in a little bubble.
Yeah.
And so later on, probably in Isaac's teenage years when he went into high school, he got into drugs and alcohol. And so we kind of rode the roller coaster of that along with anxiety, depression. And so during that time, I'd like to say that God really used him to strengthen my faith. And
that's a beautiful way to look at it too. Yeah.
It was really tough, but I really feel looking back that God really strengthened my faith during that time. And then even after Isaac's passing, like I feel like God has continued to really strengthen my faith in the things that I'm still able to see and the little signs that he sends and whatnot. But Isaac was very charismatic and he made friends with everybody. I remember also when he was younger too, telling him that we were trying to do the whole stranger danger thing, like you don't talk to strangers.
Right.
And so Isaac's way around that, because he was such a people person, was he'd go up to someone and he'd say, "Hi, I'm Isaac. What's your name?" And they'd say, "I'm Bob." And then he'd turn around and tell me, "Mom, this is Bob. He's not a stranger." And
just so he can have the freedom of conversation.
So he could conversate.
Wow.
But yeah, he didn't know a stranger, and he talked to people that most people wouldn't talk to. Yeah, he talked to the drug addicts. He talked to the people that seemed like kind of the outcasts, I like to say, of society. Those were kind of his people. And he would always say, "Hey, yeah, that guy's a little crazy, but he's also plays the guitar and he's a lot of fun." And, so he helped me have more compassion in my life, and then helped me see the world differently.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never had the chance. I've known you for a long time, but I never had the chance, because I know there was a span of years that we weren't in contact. But I have gotten to know Isaac through you and your writings, as well as your postings, the videos you share. And what a beautiful heart.
Yeah.
I remember at your book launch, people shared that about him, and the heart that he had, not only for a community, but the heart that he just had that most 19-year-olds don't have. He was just sort of a different little soul, you know what I mean?
He was.
And well, I don't even want to say was. He is. Because I know that his presence is here with us today, and I know that his presence visits you quite a bit, and how beautiful your relationship is with him as he is on the other side, you know, and there's a lot of experience that you have. And I'm encouraged because of your faith too, and how, I couldn't imagine, but me being a woman of faith, I mean, I think, if it wasn't for God, where would we be, right?
Exactly. Yes.
So for people that, are experiencing maybe the same type of grief or the same type of loss, leave us with a little bit of inspiration. Like how could you encourage not only the reader, but also the listener today?
I think for me, one of the things I'd like to say is that grief is something that you're never going to get over.
Right.
I'm never going to get over the loss of my son, but I would also like to tell people that it does change. It does change over time. And I think it's not that grief gets easier. You just get stronger in carrying it. You get more, you're more aware of who you can share things with and who you can't. And I like to say that when you're open to it and looking, you will see signs from your loved ones. I've seen a lot of different things that are absolutely like crazy when you know, things that I've shown people. I remember seeing a Isaac's face in a picture that I took after he passed away.
Yeah.
And I've seen a bunch of different things. I like to say that the sky, I look up to the sky more because the sky is our message board. There's times when I've been visiting him at his resting place and I'll say, you know, hi son, or I love you, or whatnot. And I'll be driving away and sometimes in the sky I'll see where it literally says hi. Or I've seen the peace sign where I've told him, you know, I miss you, but I know you're at peace.
Yeah.
And so things like that, if you're open to it, it kind of reminds us that they're still around us. They're still with us. Love, I tell people, grief is really love at the root of it, and love is eternal. Love doesn't die. So I would just encourage people to find a way to navigate grief in their own way. A lot of times, like, especially after Isaac passed away, I was given so many books and different things to read. And a lot of them are very clinical. A lot of them went through like the 5 stages type of thing. But I have found that even though I've had people that have come to me that have lost their sons, my grief is different because my grief is unique to the relationship I had with my son.
Yes.
And their grief is going to be different to their relationship that they had with their loved ones.
Right.
So I think you have to kind of find your own way to navigate your grief and your loss. What works for me may not work for somebody else.
Yeah.
So really, I would just say encourage them to, kind of find their tribe. I've found that the people that I thought I was going to have there forever have not been able to be there for me. And that's okay. And then there's like strangers, people that I've met because of loss and or grief. We've lost loved ones. I feel like they're the people that I'm able to connect with more now. And so that's another thing I tell people, kind of find your tribe, kind of find, you know.
And it seems like, too, in certain seasons of your life, you know, God will kind of release those who maybe don't understand.
Right.
And then send you some with an understanding.
Yes.
You know, because not everyone's going to understand your story or understand your journey and how you are striving towards healing.
Yes.
But like you said earlier, you're never going to get over grief. And oftentimes we as human beings, because we're so uncomfortable with it, we will literally say to people who have lost loved ones, hey, it's been 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, whatever the timeline has been. You need to let that go and just give it to God, and you know.
Right. Yeah.
And when people, because I remember a close friend of our family passed away, and a lot of people would say those things to her and her kids, and even one time I overheard somebody say, and I kind of snapped because it's like, you don't know what her relationship like.
Right.
You can't tell her that. I know you mean well. But, you know, and it's awkward. Sometimes we don't know what to say, you know, when people are grieving. And then sometimes we kind of hide from people that are grieving because we don't know what to say.
Right.
But I think if we could just still, you know, wish them well, we're continuing praying for you because it is a journey.
Yes,
and
it is.
Grief is a long, long journey.
Yes. I think grief is uncomfortable to the person that's grieving.
Yeah.
As it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard when you're grieving and you're trying to explain your grief to someone that doesn't understand. It's almost like speaking a different language. Like now I have a completely different language and I'm trying to talk to the same friends. And, you know, there's a language barrier there. And so I think that's why oftentimes it's easier to just kind of either ignore them altogether.
Yeah.
Or a lot of times people will just kind of talk about everything except my son. And for me, I tell people to talk about him, you know, share your stories, say his name, even if I cry, even if I get, you know, upset, I want to hear people talk about him, because that's one of the biggest things in losing him is that you lose the ability to share or to actually make new memories. And so I feel like the memories that people have and how they saw Isaac, you know, I love hearing people talk about him from their perspective, you know. So yeah, I would encourage people to, you know, just kind of be there. And I think the other thing is which I kind of have told people our natural reaction to someone that's grieving or someone that is in pain is, okay, how do we fix this? How do we get them out of this?
Yes.
But grief is not something to get through.
No.
And it's not something that, like I said, we ever get over. So the best thing you can do is just sit there and allow that person to feel whatever it is they're feeling.
Yeah.
And not everyone can do that. And if you're not that type of person that can do that, that's okay.
That's okay.
Like, be honest and just tell them, like, hey, you know, this is really heavy. I'm going to be praying for you, you know. I have people that aren't able to be there with me and sit there, but they'll do other things, like they'll leave coffee on my porch for me. They'll send me a text telling me, I'm thinking about you. I know today's probably a hard day for you when the anniversary dates and stuff come up. People have left flowers and different things. So I still feel like they're communicating love to me without feeling like they have to be sitting there next to me.
Right. That's really beautiful, and that's really, really thoughtful. Well, my friend, thank you for being here. I know it probably wasn't easy, but I appreciate, you know, your courage and your strength. And I appreciate your book. And it's not because I encouraged her to write it. This book is truly, truly an amazing just journey. You share, like I said, so transparently, and the beauty of your writing is it really breathes life. Even though it's about death and the struggle, and it really breathes life, and it makes it okay to feel what you're feeling when you're grieving a loved one. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for that, because this book has really, really helped me in the 2 losses that I've had this year. So I appreciate you, and thank you for being a guest. So you can find Saira's book on Amazon. Again, it's Losing Isaac, Memoir. I cannot say that word.
Memoirs.
Thank you.
Mom.
Of a bereaved mom. I'm so sorry. But I encourage you to purchase it. Maybe if you have a friend that is struggling with grief, definitely get it for a gift. And, you know, she writes from a real space of emotion, and it's just so candid, and it's so great. So thank you for being here with us today. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you, What's the Biz family, for joining us, and we look forward to seeing your other book, and we'll have all the information. If you have a women's group or a church that maybe can benefit from having her as a speaker, please reach out. We'll have all her information on our YouTube page. Thank you for joining us, and thank you again, Saira, for being with us today. God bless y'all.